Hello, yes, I'm going to chime in before this video starts. I am editing this like a week in the future. I'm missing a tooth in this video. I don't acknowledge it in the video. I hope it's not too distracting. They're back now. I have my teeth, but I didn't at the time of filming this a week ago. Thank you so much. Bye. Hi guys, what's up? I am back. This is gonna be a quick video because I have to walk to work in like 20 minutes, so we're gonna go fast. But this is my January wrap-up / February TBR. We'll start with the January wrap-up, like stats I wrote down. So in January, I finished 7 books, but I read 8 essentially. Total pages I read are 2,615 pages. So pretty happy with that. I had planned on reading 10 books, but didn't happen, obviously. That was a very optimistic goal. My average rating was 3.9 stars out of 5, so not the worst, not the best. I'm using the like caw pile method. I'll find the video where I originally found out about that from and put a link to it. But I'm using that method so that way I can like have a more in-depth beyond just 5-star, 4-star, whatever, you know? Like there's categories. I will link that video explaining it. It makes more sense. Genres wise, I read 3 sci-fi, 2 fantasy, 2 horror, and 1 classic. So books I read from ones I liked the least to ones I liked the most. So obviously least was Oryx and Crake by Margaret Atwood. It was just bad. It was somehow like the most like sexist thing I've read. Like and I'm not saying that anything about Margaret Atwood with that. Basically, the story follows this guy Jimmy, who also calls himself Snowman for literally no reason. It doesn't get explained, like it's a nickname he gave himself. Like, both in this like post-apocalyptic future where he's like the only human being left and there's these like children of Crake, which are like genetically engineered people. And then flashbacks to how that all happened, but not really how it all happened. Just Jimmy's life. The issue is I don't like Jimmy. And his entire backstory is pretty much just like, wow, my mom left and I hate her. Oh, wow. My friend's a pretentious asshole, which I don't understand why he and Crake are friends. I realize this is making almost no sense, but I hate this book. And then the part that really irked me was his like love interest, Oryx, who's pretty much like manic pixie dream girl, but instead of just being this quirky girl next door, she's like a human trafficking victim, and that's why he likes her. I have issues with that. You're supposed to think that like he's the hero for caring more about her trauma than she does. Hate that book. I might do a full video complaining about this book, but I also feel like I should finish it if I'm gonna do that, and I don't want to finish it. The next one I read was Through the Woods by Emily Carroll. It's like a I don't want to call it a comic series. It's a series of short stories in graphic novel form. It was really good. I really like her art style. I will say that like as much as I enjoyed the stories, they felt like more of like starts to longer stories and less like full things, but I still really enjoyed it and I love her art style. I don't still have those books with me because like I've returned them to the library because they were due. So the next 4-star book that I read was We Have Always Lived in the Castle by Shirley Jackson. I really liked this. I did also watch the movie right after, but the book wise, I really loved how it was written. I love like slightly off narrators, like, you know, like Mary Catherine is slightly off, like she's a weird kid. And I liked that. It was really good. It was very like atmospheric. I will say there wasn't quite a plot. Like there wasn't a like, it wasn't a very big plot, but I don't mind because I care more about like the characters and the atmosphere. So if you want like a horror like plot, like running away from people the whole time, like it's not that, but the movie was really good. Taissa Farmiga is great. Alexandra Daddario, amazing. What an icon. The next 4-star book I read was I Hope You Get This Message by Farah Nazrishi. I'm guessing on how to pronounce her last name. I think I'm right based on hearing other last names pronounced. But anyway, it's a sci-fi sort of novel about the end of the world. Basically, you're following 3 teenagers. Basically, Earth gets a message being like, Earth is on trial. You have 7 days while we deliberate, and then we're gonna wipe out humanity. There's nothing you can do about it. Hello, yes, I would like to clarify that they are on trial. The decision has not been made. So basically the message was, you are on trial right now. In 7 days, you may be wiped out depending on what decision we come to. It was very much an open-ended. People just assumed that meant that Earth was done. It was really good. It was like, you got to switch back and forth between the 3 kids and then also the narrator, the like trial, which was just like a transcript of them talking. And so that was really cool. It was really nice to like see their deliberations. I will say I liked some of the narrators more than others. I think that it took a little too long to get all 3 of them together, because Jesse, the one guy that's in Roswell, literally doesn't meet the other 2 till like the last couple chapters, like, which is fine. Like, I don't need them to, but it just felt a little off kilter because like the other 2 met up pretty early on. I say pretty early on. It was like a quarter of the way through the book, so I'm calling that pretty early. I also just feel like their levels of problems they were dealing with were not necessarily the most equal, but I don't know that they had to be. I also think it wrapped up a little too neatly, not in terms of the aliens, but in terms of how all the characters were linked. Also not getting into telling you why, but they're all linked, and you get the feeling from the beginning that something's gonna link them, and some of them I made the connection earlier on, and I was like, am I right? Some of this I'm okay with, some of this I'm not, but like, I still overall enjoyed it, and it's the kind of like tying up that in the past I would have like appreciated and like enjoyed, but I think I'm just at a point where I'm like, I like how random life is, you know? Like, I want these kids to just connect because the end of the world is happening and like, you know, bond over that. I don't need them to have like other ways that they're linked together. First 5-star book I read this month was The Child Thief by Brahm. The Child Thief is basically a dark Peter Pan retelling that really both follows the Peter Pan story but also introduces a whole entire other world, because obviously in Peter Pan you don't get the ins and outs of the history of Neverland and all that, and it's a very much like, I don't want to even call it a retelling, more like a reinterpretation. Peter was a very much a morally gray character, because at some points I'm like, wow, this is really shitty of you, can you not? And then at other times I was like, okay, but like, you're a product of a different time period and like a different way of life, like, this makes sense. It was really, really good. Like, really good. I would recommend it to everyone. It was great. 10 out of 10, especially if you love like fairy tale and Peter Pan retellings. Next 5-star book that I read was Villains by V. Schwab. I loved it. I loved it. I know that's not an original opinion. Everyone loves Villains. However, it is my first time reading it. I loved Villains. Like, I love a found family. I'm sure almost everyone knows what it's about, but if you don't, it's basically guy gets out of jail who gave himself superpowers. And has to go defeat the other guy who got superpowers with him. It was all part of like their like undergrad like dissertation type thing, like who has become evil, and he teams up with a 13-year-old and a dog and his friend from jail to do it. And that's a very basic description, but like, I loved it. It was so good. The last 5-star read that I read this month was Reverie by Ryan LaSala. It was really good. It was a very unique concept, and I'm gonna be real, going into reading it, I did not entirely understand what I was about to read. I also kept in my head getting that, and I hope you get this message mixed up, just because, so Reverie is also about a squad of teens, and basically this kid wakes up in the hospital and is told, you've been in a car accident. And he's like, I don't remember this. Or less a car accident, more he rammed a building with his car and everything exploded. And he's like, what? I don't remember this. Also, he's like, everything in my life is a little bit off. Like, what happened? And you basically get to learn about these things called reveries, which are basically like someone's imagination takes over and like goes out. You know, it's sort of like in Danny Phantom when they're in the ghost zone and they have all the little islands, but the islands themselves like feel like, specifically the like castle one where like I think Sam becomes a dragon, that like where it's all very contained and they think that's their world. It's like that sprouted out of people's heads, and like anyone who gets caught in it is involved. Yeah, and he basically meets up with this squad and they fix some shit. I don't want to go too much into it, but I really loved it. It was very good, like, queer representation. The author's gay, like, he's good at writing that. Good job, 10 out of 10. There was a little bit of, like, insta-love in there, but also it was a little bit excusable, because, like, he can't remember things, but everyone else can, like, you know. It was really nice seeing almost everyone in the story was gay, which was very good, very nice. They got to see gay old ladies. I loved that. I loved them. I loved them. That's a very little relevance to the plot, but, like, I loved them. One book that I'm still working on is Mrs. Dalloway by Virginia Woolf, and I'm really, really enjoying it. It's just sort of like, it's hard to get through. Virginia Woolf really wants to talk, and I love it, and I'm enjoying it, but it's also like, ugh. And, like, if it's the only thing I'm reading at a time, then, like, I just won't do it. I need to, like make that, like, my reading in bed book and, like, read everything else elsewhere, you know? I might do that. Okay, so I didn't really do a transition, but here is what I am planning on reading in February. I'm going to mention Polarthon here. Polarthon's already over. I failed at it. I aimed to read 5 books, between 3 and 5 books. I read 1.5. A lot came up, and I had to work, like, 3 doubles in a row last minute, so, like, what you gonna do? But yeah, here's my February TBR, starting with Polarthon that I was gonna read. For Polarthon, first book I'm reading is The Cold is in Her Bones by Petronelle Van Arsdale. It's a Medusa retelling. Next one I'm reading is Blankets by Craig Thompson, which is a contemporary polar graphic novel. The next one I'm reading for Polarthon is The Girl with the Glass Feet by Ali Shaw. I'm reading for Polarthon is Vasa in the Night by Sarah Porter. And then my final Polarthon book is The Bear and the Nightingale by Catherine Arden. Not Polarthon this month. I am reading Binti by Nnedi Okorafor. I'll look up how to pronounce it, I promise. It's a sci-fi novella, so I'm excited. So I decided to read one new release this month, and that is The Mercies by Kieran Millwood Hargrave. Yeah. I am also reading The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks by Rebecca Skloot. For the Literally Dead Book Club that Books and Lala is doing, I am reading The Other People by CJ Tudor. And then, of course, last but very much not least, hopefully, I am reading Vengeful by V.E. Schwab. And yeah, so those are the books I'm going to try to read in February. I figured I'd try for 10, and hopefully with Polarthon, that'll speed me through 5 of them, and so the rest will be easy. It was not. But I'm optimistic. And yeah, well, thank you guys so much for watching. Feel free to follow me on Twitter and Instagram. I'm trying to be more active on. I will put links to those. And yeah, so thank you for watching. Please let me know what you're reading, what you read. If you have any opinions on any of these books, what you thought of Oryx and Crake, because I hated Oryx and Crake. Yeah, let's have a conversation. Feel free to subscribe, and I'll be back sometime later.